Hey everyone, welcome to the Download Podcast, episode 74. This episode we will be talking about The Last Ronin at the end, giving our thoughts. In the meantime, we'll be talking about some of the current events of news that's been popping up, as well as just stuff going on in their life. So we hope you enjoy the episode.
Just trying to get caught up, folks.
Yeah.
And of course, we'll be going off the rails. So stay tuned.
So do we want to talk about the trailers as far as like?
Well, real quick, I'd like to talk about Jerry Springer for just a minute.
Okay.
I mean, he died. He had a brief illness, but they're saying it was some kind of cancer, right, Vince?
It was pancreatic cancer, and
he just got
that tends to take you out pretty quick, and that's what it did to him.
I had an
diagnosed and went downhill,
and that was, I mean, like or hate the guy, he changed television, and he cared enough about his community. He became mayor of Cincinnati.
Yeah, he was he was a politician. He became a mayor.
Yeah, when he said he was going to do something, he did it. And yeah, people will remember him for all the stage fighting and the redneck activity and all the baby daddy Wonderland crap before everybody else did it.
But you're your own grandpa.
Yeah, the guy changed television. He, some say for the worse, say some for the better. He brought the reality of what is life to TV. And, I watched the Jerry Springer show a lot growing up.
Hey,
times when I was laid off, I would watch it. And, like I said, it was always entertaining. And the Steve Wilkos show was a pure extension of that. And I don't know. I always have respect for the guy because, like I said, good or bad, he did something different with what's out there.
So what you're saying is that if they were here, you would tell them this, and you didn't appreciate that. So we got a surprise for you.
Yeah,
backstage.
Right.
Yeah.
Again,
he's the king of the blind side, man.
Yeah, he was. Loved it. And he absolutely knew when things were going to go sideways because he would take a couple steps back and he would have Steve and his buddies over there and the little security squad absolutely on the wings, ready to go. You're effing my man. And all of a sudden you got freaking 500 female fists flying and stuff.
He was a shock jock for video. Live television. Mm-hmm. Because, there was Donahue, Mike Douglas. There were always those talk shows during the day. But then you had like him, and then Maury Povich came in after him. And then what was the other guy who was in Predator 2?
Jesse Ventura?
No. He had a bit part playing a reporter, and he got punched in the face by Danny Glover's character. He had his own show too. And each one, in trying to outdo each other, they took television to a whole new place.
Right. I mean, because you had Maury Povich, and then you had Geraldo, who I wish would have gone instead of Jerry Springer. But
yeah, wish Geraldo had climbed in Al Capone's safe.
Yeah, I mean, Geraldo deserved to go first.
No. See, y'all are missing out on an even more interesting vein of this type of television that I didn't find out about until I went and started working at a warehouse for Comcast. And the guys that were checking boxes, they would be playing stuff on the TV, right? And so daytime Telemundo, right? I would walk by, and the guy's name was Luis Censura, right?
Oh God, I know the name.
Oh my goodness!
Oh man,
that show got wild.
Yeah,
that show got wild, man. Like I just looked over. I was like, did that effeminate guy just jump over a chair and drop kick that dude in the chest? And they're like, yeah. I was like, I don't know what they're saying. I don't know what the topic's about. You don't even got to tell me. It's fantastic. I'm just gonna sit here and watch it.
Did the beat guy come out?
The whole thing about. Go ahead.
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Vince. I got a comparison, but just go ahead and do your thing.
I was just going to say it's that whole thing about letting action, tell the story.
Exactly.
You didn't need to know what they were saying. You just need to watch.
Exactly. Watching the Telemundo stuff is a lot like watching those Japanese game shows at 2 a.m. on the satellite dish. exactly the same thing. It's going to be high intensity. It's going to be bonkers. You're going to be laughing your ass off, and you're not going to understand a thing, but you're not going to care because it's got your attention.
See, that's the thing, though, is that with shows like this, because of Springer and because of all that, you know what's happening. You don't know, but you know, right?
Yeah, you're expecting it.
Like, you're just watching this, and you're like, okay, just from body language and who's yelling at who, you're like, okay, so that person slept with that person, and they're with that person. I don't know how this fourth person fits in, but they're sleeping with somebody too, and he just took a chair to the dome. All right, we're in business. Let's go.
Yes, buckle up.
It's pro wrestling.
That's right.
Except more real.
Pro wrestling with lucha.
I don't know how much
No, I
it
don't
was
know how
all
much
real.
real was.
Some of that stuff was pretty
That was pretty
choreographed. You
scripted.
could, you know.
I don't know. I don't care. It was. I
It's
wish I
great.
could get more Telemundo here.
I mean, look, if we go back, right, if you roll back and you remove that wonderful vein of daytime television, what are we stuck with? We're stuck with soaps, right? Would Court TV even become as big as it was without? Because Court TV, if we're really honest with ourselves, is just watered down.
Yeah, you're right.
Right.
Maury and Jerry, right? Like it's all everybody going up there and talking about how they ripped each other off, except instead of throwing shit at each other, they just tell these horrible stories about one another. And then the judge steps in and cracks them and is like, "You owe that."
Oh yeah,
person.
and I love Judge Judy, and you're a liar. I don't believe you. Shut up. You're in my court now.
And Jerry
she'd
Springer
make a
started
big
all
old.
of
She'd
that.
make big old dudes, 400-pound monster dudes that you wouldn't want to meet in a back alley, just crying because Judge Judy told them off on national television.
Nothing. And Jerry Springer started all of that.
Well,
I did
here's the
miss
thing.
one. I did miss one genre though. We'd also be buried up to our eyeballs still in game shows, right? Like they're still out there. They're still the ones that are lasting, but we'd have an even bigger. Like, who wants to sit down in the middle of the day, honestly, and just watch 80 million hours of The Price is Right? You need some spot. You need the spice.
No. I got to tell you,
need
when
the
I was
spice.
growing up, you had the talk shows in the morning, then your game shows started.
Right.
Price is Right. What were some of the Jeopardy?
Fortune.
$64 million question.
Question.
Yeah,
I loved all of those. Especially playing against the TV to see how well you do.
The dating game.
But see, those encouraged, reading and learning and intelligence.
Real
And you
thinking.
don't need that. I don't want that in the daytime. When I'm home and I'm day drinking, the thing I want to see is some lady shouting about how she is 5,000 I'm 5,000% sure he is my baby's daddy, Maury. I know I've been here 8 other times and I was just as sure all those other times, but
This
know
is the one. This is the one I know. But honestly, the thing is that I didn't watch that shit. I'm sorry, but like I would pull in I'd go through the catalog of stuff that my dad recorded and be like, all right, here's Transformers or Ghostbusters. Let's put this in. Or play a video game.
Oh yeah,
I didn't want to watch nonsense.
24 hours of Transformers was not like mind-bendingly melting your brain after a while.
But you know what?
I remember coming
John
going,
Wayne.
Son, stop. You just look at me and I'm like, no, there's other PBS. We'll go see what's on. Okay, I'd put it back in and just go. Because I worked at night and I slept during the day while your mom worked. And so then I would watch you and put in the whatever my tape was. And I remember when you burnt through, I had never seen a tape melted before because you just kept watching it and it stretched and eventually just goes, I hear that.
Well, I mean, it was either that or when you would have us go over to have Denise watch us or somebody else watch us or Debbie watch us, and it was the soaps. And it's like, well, I'm going to go stand in the sun and get a tan and watch. Oh my God, but you're not the person I love. I mean, like, no.
I mean, I got to tell you, and this is sad because I worked construction, at one point, and I got hurt, and so I was in a cast for a while. I had to
Oh,
go
I remember
undergo
that.
major surgery,
Yeah.
and during that time, I was home with my wife, and she liked to watch soaps, and I became hooked on General Hospital. Yeah, one
Yep.
life to live. But I was so hooked into General Hospital when I got healed and got better and could go back to work. I'd call her at lunch and go, "So what happened?"
Same thing happened to me
And
when
I
I
was
was
like,
out.
there is something wrong with my brain. I think they get
Yes.
in there. There's radio waves there. The
You could have picked
explosions
up a
in your head.
comic.
Yeah.
You could have
Yes.
called. You could have called Colin. You could have called
No.
anybody that could have went and got you some books.
No, he needed to
Look, that
know.
was Luke and Laura time, man.
Yes.
Don't go there.
Found out that he was still alive, right? That's what he needed to know. He needed to know if she found out if her husband was still alive, right? He just changed his face so that he looked like his brother, right? That's what needed to be understood. You needed to find out if that happened. It was important. But
Anything can be addictive if
whatever
you.
stuff was doing, whatever, right? It didn't matter.
He had acid spit on his face,
Yeah.
just on one side. So you got to have
You
it
know,
in a coin.
I used to crack up because there'd be this one guy who was in a coma, and he was like in a coma for half the season. And I was like, that's
Oh,
the only time. And he's
that
like
was
laying
General
in his
Hospital.
bed, and these people would come in and deliver their lines and talk and leave. I said, he's making the same money they're making, and all he's doing is laying down. I wonder what he's
One.
thinking.
It's like
He
Jeffrey
won.
D. Morgan in Grey's Anatomy. He was Danny Buchanan and John Winchester at the same time. And half of his season in Grey's Anatomy, he just spent his time in the bed, and he was making big bucks. And he was off set going to Supernatural, being John Winchester and making just as much money.
Oh yeah,
So
man, I love him.
here's the thing, though, about that. We're talking about actors who slept in a bed for a whole season and got paid the same as regular actors.
Right.
We got Pedro Pascal not getting paid because he only does VA work for Mando, and there's two other actors that actually.
Well,
you know,
he didn't like when Kathleen Kennedy told him that they were going to reduce him down to a voice actor.
Yeah.
And,
Which brings us to
man,
the
I don't
topic.
even want to talk about Mando.
Kaiju Kennedy. Come on.
It's getting
I don't
worse.
wanna talk
All
about
the
it.
Star Wars stuff that's been coming out, and the fact
I'm just waiting for it to. I'm waiting for her to go up on stage and tell another lie, and all of a sudden we see that Death Star explosion that goes, and then the ring
Yeah.
circle goes out, and it's just all the sparkles.
Right. Now, what I would
And
like
then you
to see.
see George Lucas sneaking off stage.
Now, what
I
I would
wanna
like to
see-
see queuing up to the Death Star explosion would be Jar Jar Binks running on the stage with a suicide vest.
Misa found this button. I wonder what it does.
He should do a good thing and hug her, and just both of them blow up, and it's the Death Star.
You know, okay, I will say this. You know when Lucas was and he got all that flack from the first Phantom Menace, right?
Right.
He made that movie for 9-year-olds. And here we are, a bunch of adults going, I don't like the racism and all that other stuff. He wasn't thinking about that. He was making it for kids, you know? And you're an adult and they're watching the movie, so quit complaining.
I mean, we're sitting here talking about Jar Jar Binks in the negative sense, and he's still a better character than half the characters and half the plot line
Yeah,
The sequel
yeah.
and the
trilogy.
post stuff.
Yeah,
And he made a hell of a Jedi.
Yeah.
yeah, he did.
I mean,
can we
in
have
the
her like?
long run, even with that special edit that pissed George Lucas off, where there was no Jar Jar Binks, it was still, you knew Jar Jar Binks was there. He's
Yeah.
still a better character than most of the post stuff.
Can we have her rip off her face and have it be this green skeleton? She goes,
No, I'm
"Hey,
waiting
man."
for somebody to turn off that antenna, and she's going to be big-eyed, emaciated face like from They Live.
Yeah.
You know.
Or that scene in Total Recall when you're out and you're not supposed to be able to have all the oxygen.
I'm sorry. That can't happen. Every time I see that movie, I'm like, okay, that's bullshit. This can't happen. You can't go expand. Your eyes can't bulge out 10 inches from your face, and all of a sudden oxygen flows into you, and you go, whoa, what was that? You're like, what's his name from Taxi?
Andy Kaufman.
No, not Andy Kaufman. Doc Brown's character. Sorry.
Christopher Lloyd, whatever his
Christopher Lloyd, but I can't remember the character he played.
name. It'll come to me later. But anyway,
trailers.
All right, where do we start?
Well, we can start with the Transformers trailer. With the
guess
Rise
so.
of Beast.
I you know what? They had me at the Maximals and they look good. The scenes that I've seen with them, it takes me back to the show. And
I agree with that. I'm just sad it took this long to get there.
yeah.
Okay.
Vinny said earlier, it's got the stink of Michael Bay all over it still.
Yeah.
So there's
That's because he goes in and he has to pee all over everything and mark his territory. So that stink is
Can
no matter
someone answer
what.
me this? All right. It's great. The Maximals look fantastic.
Yes.
But why can't I get a decent Transformers movie with, Jazz actually being Jazz instead of Mirage, sounding like tracks? Let's see. Wheeljack.
And
Stereotypical
Bumblebee
scientist with the
chest.
glasses on his face and doesn't look anything like Wheeljack.
Well, and here's the thing with Wheeljack is, that's one of my favorite characters. When they made him into the Einstein-looking character from the second Transport, was it Dark Side of the Moon?
Second or third.
And they're trying to make that fit into this continuity. I knew that the minute they were going to do this, they were going to screw him up. So I was like, he's not Wheeljack to me.
Oh, did you hear about the news today too? That they're going to be doing an animated film on Cybertron.
Oh yes,
and they're supposed to look like they did in the Bumblebee movie. I'm like, how can you be so like opposite ends of the spectrum here for things? Because you have the Cyber War for Cybertron on the Bumblebee movie, which was fantastic, which gave everyone what they wanted. Then you had Bumblebee movie, which connected to the Bayverse. You finally gave Bumblebee a voice and Adam would be a character. Then you're like, oh, we're gonna destroy his memory banks and like rip out his voice box so that way he can't talk and he's a child. I'm like, you're destroying the character. What this character meant for a generation of people. Why? And on top of that, you have two triple changers that didn't exist in lore, but then you put Blitzwing as Starscream in the movie, and you kill him. But you could have made Blitzwing the main villain and a triple changer.
Remember, they're all okay. These are supposed to be robots in disguise, right? Inconspicuous, driving around, nobody would know. So what does Bay do? He makes them look like the most
flashiest thing,
flashy standout vehicles on the planet. The concept cars. Yeah, that's nobody's gonna go, wow, look at that.
You don't see that every day. And then don't even get me started the fact that you have the villains in the movie be the Terracons and they're just an organization of bad robots.
But actually, from what I've read, they are going to be the minions of Unicron. And so remember, if they were going to do that, they screwed up because they used Galvatron in the one movie.
Right.
And then they could have brought in the sweeps. They could have brought in what's his name?
Urge and yes, I know.
And made them. But no, they've got to come up with something new because remember, these are supposed to be driving toy sales and merchandising.
Right.
And so everything is revolving around what's gonna sell in Christmas time.
So you have the Terracons who were abominous when they transformed together.
Yeah, which they're not going to be.
They're not going to be. We're not even going to get a Combinder in this movie. And then they have like all these little bitty robots that are minions of Unicron. And then we get like Unicron looking like he did from the movie. And it's like, how can you be so all over the place? It's like,
well,
stick with one aesthetic and go. Don't go.
Remember in Prime, there were minions of Unicron. They were animated dead his army. And so maybe that's where they're drawing some of that inspiration.
But in the trailer, you see tons of Scorponux. You see tons of other little bitty things. And it's like, why?
I'm hoping that the trailer just threw too much at you, and there's more of a tangible story that explains all of that, and that is literally just not too much up front.
I just want the guy who did the voice of Rizzo to be Rat Trap. That's all I want. Light the lamp, not the rat, not the rat.
From what I know, he's not even in the movie.
I know.
Well, we'll see. David, thoughts?
Big robot smashy movie looked fine.
Hulk smash.
I didn't. I think I've talked about it before. I didn't really watch a whole lot of Transformers as a kid. Like the first exposure I really had to a lot of Transformers was post the movie. So like I knew Megatron existed, but the cartoons that I watched, he was Galvatron by that point. So he wasn't Megatron, and I was horrifically confused because I'm like, wait, isn't there supposed to be like a giant white one that runs around here called Megatron? What the hell is all this? Had like the weird Scottish one that talked. It had a bunch of floating, had 4 faces on them that would float around and do all that crap. So that was the Transformers that I saw the most of as a kid. And
Besides
then
Beast Wars, or no? Besides Beast Wars, or no?
I didn't get around to Beast Wars, but by the time I got to Beast Wars, all I had was Beast Wars. Right? It was like Beast Wars and that really weird shit from when I was a small kid. So all the interconnective tissue between those two didn't exist for me. So I watched Beast Wars. I really enjoyed Beast Wars, and so yeah, looking at this movie, they look cool. The last Transformers movie that I watched was Dark of the Moon. That was the third one, right?
Second
where
one.
Optimus Megatron's face off.
That was the one where we got to see Devastator's dangling part of the
balls.
No, that was two.
That was two.
That was right there. That was the Fallen, Rise of the Fallen, or whatever.
Oh, that was the. Yeah, you're right. Dark Side of the Moon was when what's his name came back, Leonard Nimoy.
Yeah, I was about to say the last one that I watched was the one with Leonard Nimoy. Right, that was the last of all of these live action Transformers movies I watched.
Alpha Trion
Waters
or Sigma Trion. I can't remember what his name was.
Yeah, whatever his name was. That was the last one I watched.
Like reference here at all?
Huh?
I just want to say that that's probably the greatest review ever of what we all just said, of how horrible the Michael Bay stuff was, that none of us who actually know the characters and know the story and know the lore, that we can't remember the characters from the movies because it was just that bad and we're trying to block it out.
Well, and like what y'all are talking about, right? They chop up these characters and, one of them that should behave or look like this instead behaves or looks like that. So it's kind of hard to keep track of, well, wait, was that the character they actually got right, or was that one of the ones that completely screwed up? Who knows? Who cares?
Yeah, it's not worth caring. I can go watch the 86 movie and be just content.
So that was the one with the guy who was from Grey's Anatomy, right? Who was the hitting on the main character's girlfriend.
Are you talking about?
And that was the one where the Decepticons could look like they were flesh, so they were pretenders, and she tried to give Witwicky the tongue. Yeah, I remember that.
Yes.
Yeah.
See, that's about all I remember from it.
That was the one that had Anthony Hopkins in it as the.
No, well, Anthony Hopkins was the Last Night. Was the one where they did the whole King Arthur thing. I was like, okay, how many other lores can we throw into?
That was the last one with Shia LaBeouf in it, because remember the second movie had the GoBot twins, Skids and
right, and the main that was where they had to get the key and went to the desert and all that. I can remember them vaguely. I remember I actually liked the ones with what's his name better, the one who's playing Cage or whatever, Mark Wahlberg. I kind of liked that.
He might have been one of the few saving graces of all that.
And I think they only did 2, right?
Yeah, they only did 2 with him.
Only did 2.
But the problem is that you have no direction on what you're trying to do with these movies at all. It's just like, let's throw a bunch of shit on the dartboard, kind of like the sequel trilogy, and whatever sticks, we're going to try to weave this bullshit story together
Yeah.
with like no semblance of what was before and what could be for the next generation.
Yeah.
No.
Spaghetti on the wall.
I mean,
No. Look, it's really simple. Big stompy robot goes smash smash, and that's it.
and explosions. That's Michael Bay's
Yeah.
thing.
It's
Lots
an
of
earthquake. It's an
explosions.
earthquake. Get under the table. Get under the table.
You know,
We're gonna hide.
I'll never
Yeah.
in my lifetime be able to have a Transformers movie that is in a pure to form adaptation of the original comic or the original cartoon
Well,
with a little bit more mature sensibilities. Because even in those stories, because Marvel wrote it, they were still a little bit mature than the garbage that Michael Bay was shoveling at us. Like, hey, look, it's Transformers cereal, but it's a box of shit.
Well, we've talked about this before. Why is it that we can't get a decent movie, but we can get like animated movies or animated TV shows that are well written, the characters are memorable and they're closer to the core material
right.
when somebody who has all the money in the world can do a movie and they can't seem to understand what the story is about at its core.
I wonder if it's just a matter of the studios, right? For some weird disconnected reason in their brain, the smaller projects is where all of the passion people get to go, right? That's
Yeah.
where that's where no one cares about it. And because no one cares about it, the only people on it are the actual people that care about it. Once you start funneling millions and millions and millions of dollars in there, everybody starts stepping in and saying, "Hey, you know what? No, I think we need to change. You know what? Our focus groups have come in and said that children from the ages of 5 to 8, they actually like incredibly racist robots that form together to create an ice cream truck. So we
And
need to
rap. Yeah.
Right. Oh, here,
and,
like I said,
and after that, you know what, guys? I've always wondered about the anatomy of robots. Shouldn't they have testicles? I think we should put testicles on that one giant robot because clearly he's at an angle to see it. And I think audiences want that. That's what I
Oh,
think it
and the
needs.
audiences definitely wanted to see Bumblebee pee on
piss on
somebody.
people. Yeah. I wanted to see
Yeah.
my favorite character turn into a child and piss on people he didn't like.
Yeah.
Okay. Here's the thing. Companies out there, Hasbro, which is that's something we need to get into. Who was it? Paramount who put Transformers out? I don't remember who the studio was.
I thought they were in a license with Mattel.
No, but as far as the movies, the Michael Bay stuff. But here's the thing. Whatever you're doing isn't working. So like your Snake Eyes origin movie, which was so far from what the origin of the character was, and it failed, and it failed to launch your new multiverse stuff. How about you give it to somebody that actually knows what the fuck they're doing and write a good story? Because it's not hard to write a military story about a special military group taking on a terrorist organization that's trying to take over the world with like capturing scientists to make these crazy weapons that would eradicate us from the planet.
Yeah,
Give it
they
to
did it
the
in the
24
'80s. They did it in
How
the
hard?
'90s.
How hard is it? The closest we get to that is watching The Expendables. That is the closest we get to a G.I. Joe movie. And then for Transformers, unfortunately, we haven't had a good one. Bumblebee was the closest we got, but they had to tie in the Michael Bay connections. You didn't need to have him turn into the Camaro at the end.
And it's
You could
sad
have had him
that
had the Bumblebee. You could have the Volkswagen and have that one scene that all fans wanted. Mack truck prime next to a Volkswagen Beetle driving on the highway. Come on.
it's sad that
Service.
Bumblebee had a more of a G.I. Joe feel
Yes, it did.
than the G.I. Joe movie
Okay,
did.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah.
Because of the soldiers in the movie. And hell, the soldiers from the Michael Bay first one felt like G.I. Joe.
Yep.
It's like they wanted to use G.I. Joe but didn't get permission.
Well, and that's the thing too, is that G.I. Joe was a story about humans dealing with human problems.
Right.
Transformers has always been about Transformers having to deal with human problems and their problems affecting Transformers, or vice versa.
Well, I mean, look, the humans didn't go to Cybertron and start dinking with them. They actually came to our Earth.
Yes, they did. Yes.
And brought their war to Earth. It should have been about the different cultures and how they have to band together in the face of an adversary, all powerful adversary. Easy story to write, especially if you keep it human and you let the characters write and tell their own story. The problem is they take a character and try to force it into a situation that doesn't fit the character.
You're trying to force the character into
Same thing with comics today, books today, movies today, television shows. They keep trying to force this thing that isn't working, and at some point it ends up costing them their studio or their jobs. And then instead of going, you know what, I think I messed up. I probably didn't have my finger on the pulse. No, I'm going to blame my audience. It's the audience's fault that they can't get what I'm trying to feed them. No, it's you. You've got one job, and that's to please an audience, to put them in the seat, to make money. And if you make money, everybody's happy. Look, what's his name from Flash movie? Miller, he was out. He was gone. He was all but dead in the water. But it's going to make money. So guess what? Money is the greatest forgiving message that you can write.
Which reminds me of something that just Zaslav put out there a couple days ago. He's not going to worry about HBO Max. He's not going to worry about streaming. He wants to. His quote was, "I want to respect the movie being in the theaters, and I want to respect that time window." But the way he put it was, "We need this thing to make as much money as humanly possible."
Yeah, because it's one thing to say something to the press; it's a whole other thing to what you really mean by it. It needs to make money because they've already spent a lot of money.
Right. Yeah, they're on the verge of bankruptcy, so that's they've got him. Hey, look, Flash had problems, and it wasn't just Ezra Miller, and they've sank a lot of money into reshoots and tooling this thing to make it crowd pleasing. So, and they gave you all the bells and whistles. I mean, all the stuff with Michael Keaton, remember, he was going to be gone. All these other characters were going to be gone, and they're back in there. It's because they listened and heard the audience say, "What the hell are you doing?"
Yeah.
So this looks good. It's the same thing that happened with Kennedy and Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. Her ass is on the line. She's going to be lose her job. What do? It ain't your money. I'm just going to go out and spend all of Disney's money and do, hours and upon hours and of film reshoots, and then spend the last 3 months of before the movie comes out having effects houses make it look beautiful. But you got to listen to what's being said in the background. Harrison Ford is not happy with the film.
And he's already said he's done.
He said, "I'm done." And remember, at one point, he was like, "You know what? I could do this again." They were talking about the TV series and all this stuff. Right. And then all of a sudden, he started by going on and doing interviews where he's like, "This is his film," and talk about Mangold. And, that's pushing that blame off because he knows, if it had not blown up in her face, we would have had a total different movie than we have now. And I'm sorry, I know people love Snyder and they think he's the greatest person. But when he put out Batman versus Superman, he said that was his cut. There are interviews with him saying, "This is the best. This is what I meant to have on screen." Blew up in his face. And then he goes, "Oh, well, I've got all this extra footage. Let's put it in and make a more coherent story." And guess what? That extended was much better. Because it gave the characters room to breathe. There were more elements that you would expect from them.
Storytelling.
That is hindsight helping you. That isn't your idea. That wasn't what you wanted. What you wanted didn't work. Now you're going to go and fix it and do a mulligan and give the audience what they want so that you can try to recoup some of those losses. Get it right the first time. It's not that hard.
No, it's not.
We did it.
Even if it takes a little bit longer to put it in theater, you get it right. Absolutely.
Yeah.
But yeah, well, and the next trailer is what do we get? Well, there's the Equalizer trailer for the third movie.
Didn't see
that. Man, I really love I love the old TV series, so but I'm a man whore for Denzel Washington, so
Right. I mean,
anything he's in.
he's done well for the character, but at the same time, the stuff that Queen Latifah is doing is equally as good. So
I
it's
didn't
For the
watch
female
the show.
for the TV show.
right.
I didn't watch the
So
TV
for
show.
she's always been able to deliver. Okay, and some of the stuff that she done is very, very good. The Denzel Washington stuff is always going to deliver because he delivers.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm on the fence with it. You know, I didn't see the third trailer yet. I want to see it because I saw the first two movies, really enjoyed them. He did the character justice, he did the storyline justice, but at the same time, the TV series that she's doing also does the character justice. So, you know, treat it like a multiverse type of thing.
Well, that's the thing, though, is like, why can we get certain media be translated faithfully to a product and have some kind of like reverence for it?
Well, it's
Yeah.
because you have more time. Televisions, you have more time. When you screw up a television show, you've got to really screw up a television show because you have more time to create the characters, to develop
So
them.
we're talking
Where
about
in a movie, you've got this short window, right? To tell a story, and sometimes you don't, and then you've always got the studio wanting a shorter runtime because it means putting more people in the seat.
Right.
They don't like these 2.5 hour movies, and they hate a 4.5 hour movie. They would, they'd be happy for us to see an hour and a half movie.
87 to 90 minutes is what
Hey,
they
Sisu. Sisu comes out this week. It's like it's a light, tight, like I think it's 90 minutes. It is a.
Well, there's
it is
not
a
much
very-
story. It's a guy who's just like, you can't kill him. He's too angry, too mean. And he's just gonna go around killing people. And that is just a popcorn flick of murder and mayhem. And that's
Yeah,
You know,
he's
that's
killing
not
Nazis,
even available up here.
and that's what's awesome.
These two is not even available up here. I'm gonna literally have to wait till it comes out onto digital media because we are a secondary market up here in Syracuse area, the greater region.
man.
We don't even get half of that stuff.
That's
You
unfortunate.
guys get all the good quality fun stuff. You get all the side stuff. We get second tier, secondary market stuff, and that's it. Because I'm after the discussion we had today in the chat, I'm like, okay, where can I possibly go see that? Nada. And I was like, are you freaking kidding me? So now I got to wait 6 months for it to come out on digital to be able to be caught up with you guys.
So even after it makes its run, it won't cycle through y'all's theaters.
Nope.
Wow.
No, that's
It's too much of a
secondary
obscure
market
movie that
We've
warrants
always
that.
had that,
Yeah.
which was one of the big reasons I wanted to move back down there, is so we could be in a first tier market instead of a second tier market. Because we get, unless something is being pushed on a national level, like the Disney stuff or the Marvel stuff or whatever, we don't get half of that. We don't get the art house stuff. We don't get the indie stuff unless it was filmed here in Syracuse. That's the only time they pay attention to the indie films.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, that's the way it is. But Ron Perlman is part of a company that's actually based in Syracuse now. I believe it is. And they're starting to draw a lot more films. And that's the only reason we're starting to get attention, is because Syracuse is becoming they're using that secondary market to say, okay, we can shoot these lower budget, these indie style films here, and all these celebrities are going to be seen, and they're popping up all over town. And Alec Baldwin, of course, lives like 40 minutes from here, or his mom does. And all the Baldwins grew up 40 minutes from where I live. I did a survey on the stuff when I was working for a place called True Green Lawn. I actually surveyed their property for spraying and all that crap. And they live outside of a city called Canastota.
Behind their shitty wall.
No, it wasn't. It's actually just a nondescript house. It's just close to the water.
Oh, it was a joke, a South Park throwback.
No,
Sorry.
but I think it's Kevin Hart has a place in Constantia, which is like 25 minutes from here. It has
Kevin Hart, really?
It's KH on the gates. And it's a nice place, but again, by the water.
So did you guys see the trailer for Flash, the one that popped up today?
Yes.
I didn't get to watch it. What'd y'all
Well,
think?
you mean
The new
the
one. Yeah, absolutely.
I saw it the other day, the new one, but
It's
I was
supposed to be.
probably
It
watching it
popped up
on
yesterday.
Yeah, it
YouTube.
popped up yesterday.
I did watch it. There was a couple of new lines, a couple of the Michael Keaton lines. You want to get nuts with the bats
Well,
behind stuff.
yeah, there's a Michael Keaton one. There's one with Ben Affleck showing him in the new gray outfit.
Okay,
And
that's the one. The one I saw had both of them in it. It was an
yeah,
extension.
so what they're doing is they're kind of doing these little bitty snippets. Like the next one, I think is supposed to be all about the Supergirl. Kind of giving you a character profile for each of the characters. So yeah, there's a lot of
Yeah,
previews.
I mean the one that I saw had Ben Affleck talking about, uh, don't let the scar. We need those scars to make us who we are. And Michael Keaton saying, "You want to get nuts? Let's get nuts."
Mm-hmm.
And Supergirl saying, "What did you do?" You know, I like the commercials and I like what it's offering. I still don't like Ezra Miller. If they get rid of him, I'll be fine with that. It made me who I was in mid June of '89, to see Michael Keaton in the costume again. Okay, all the other stuff is extrapolatory. Michael Shannon is back as Zod, fine. Okay, he did a good job at it. Whatever. Seeing Michael Keaton was the only reason
Yeah,
I
well,
continued to watch that trailer. Watching him
what's
go
his
up
name?
against Zod directly.
Shannon didn't even want to come back at first.
Right.
He didn't want
He's
to play
confused.
Zod. He was
But
like,
he got
Like,
friggin'
that?
he got Zach's approval. He got Zach's blessing. So he's like, okay, I guess I'll do it.
yeah, like Zach. I can remember when people were telling Zach he couldn't do any kind of a superhero movie. Anybody
Yeah.
remember when Watchmen came out and how everybody was like dogging him? And I was like, man, it's great. I loved it. And
Watchmen
then
was
he
a
came
great
out
one.
with like 5 different versions of the damn.
Yeah, it made people thirsty for whatever he was offering. But I don't
He's a
know.
great director. I just,
Yeah, I mean, 300 is a good testament of what he did.
yes.
He is a great cinematographer, right?
Yes.
Yeah, that's a
He's
better way
very
of saying it.
good at.
Because
He has a very good eye of capturing images. That's great.
sometimes he
For the love
can't
of God-
finish a movie just right.
Yeah, for the love of God, don't let him write.
Yeah.
You get the
I mean,
right crew behind you.
His build up is good. His build up's great character development, but then like at the end, it just falls short. I mean,
Yeah.
the remake
No,
of the
he
Dead,
Dismount.
the
The
Like-
dismount is horrible.
he's J.J. Abrams all over again. They're people who
Fair.
take the essence of a character and figure out what turns them into the MTV version of it.
I will give I don't know who I want to give more credit there, because Abrams feels like he's just perpetually, all he does is just rehashes the same things over. It's like, oh,
No.
you really like this? Well, I'm just gonna take that and I'm just gonna sprinkle a little bit of my bullshit on top of it and give it to you again. It's like, oh,
Yeah.
I mean, I appreciate that. Snyder at least goes in a weird direction with his crap.
Right.
It's not always good, and it's not always necessarily to everybody's taste, but he at least does
Right.
something different,
Well,
right?
I mean,
Like, let's give him
he's
a
pretty
little bit of
arrogant too. I mean,
He's
think about it.
very arrogant.
They wouldn't let me do a Star Wars movie, so I'm going to do my own Star Wars movie.
Great.
Hey,
So how
Fine.
much of it's going to be on somebody?
But I mean, but you want to know what about that though? I mean, that's the mentality to have, right? Like, hey, I can't go make this one thing, so well, the finger to y'all. I'm just gonna go make my own thing anyway. I mean, that's how you get new IPs. Like for
Right.
all these IPs that are dying and are wasting away underneath these big corporations, if you get the right guy, I'm not saying Snyder's the right guy, right? But if you get the right guy who could have done this thing and they have a good enough idea and they're able to sell it elsewhere, that's how you get a new IP to come up out of the sludge that is Hollywood and become something good and interesting, and it will pull people.
Exactly.
I just don't like
There
the
has to be-
idea of. Go
There
ahead.
has to be that. I'm sorry. There has to be that guy that opens the door. It's like Ed Wood, for instance. Everything Ed Wood ever did got panned, but the guy did television commercials. He did all these movies. Some of the stuff he did got permanently remembered. but it was always panned. You got all these modern day directors going, "No, it was schlock, and this is this," but the guy opened doors. Down the road, you got guys like David Lynch who team up with guys like Mel Brooks and give you the Elephant Man. You know, that one stacks into another. Maybe Zack Snyder is not going to be remembered for being the great director or the great storyteller, but he's going to be remembered as the guy who's got the foundation blocks that other people add to. And somebody who likes his stuff is going to be able to say, okay, I want to do this, but if I do this instead, it'd be more viable.
Well,
It's like the Thor movie in Marvel, the original Thor movie. It was a stepping stone. It wasn't meant to be anything. It wasn't meant to be.
The problem with the Thor stuff is they couldn't figure out who they wanted Thor to be. You know, he was great in the first two. I actually am one of probably the only people who liked the Dark World. And, you know, and then all of a sudden we got Ragnarok. Whoa, that's a whole new direction.
Right.
And
but going back to that, the Thor movie wasn't meant to be anything more than to establish, hey, here's Thor. This is who he is. This is what's going on.
It was just an origin.
But added Hawkeye, it was meant to be a stepping stone.
But
it's a great movie at the same time.
That's because you got Kenneth Branagh, who is a great writer, a great director, and a great actor, and who does period pieces and all this other stuff to direct it.
Exactly.
You know, and it added a weight, and then you added Anthony Hopkins to that weight to, you know, as Odin. There was some gravitas to Thor.
Exactly.
And it became a comedy or a parody of itself.
Exactly.
And I've got to say that just because you can do something really well, and because I'm going to get burned here, I think Tim Burton as a director and an artist and everything else is somebody who gives us very interesting IPs. He creates a lot of new stuff.
Fair.
Where if you get a lot of other directors that give you deviations on things we've already seen before. It doesn't mean you're creating an IP. You're just taking something that's existed and telling it in a different way, which there's nothing wrong with that, because like I always say, there's nothing new under the sun. Everything has been done.
Unless you're Kaiju Kennedy and you're just going to shoot everything down.
Well, and you could be Neil Blomkamp, who anything that
Neil Blomkamp's another guy that I
like he's had an opportunity to make an Aliens 5 movie, but we had freaking Ridley Scott go, no, because I want to tell a story about what I think life is and all this other
and that's because you get directors who start believing their own hype, and they don't feel like they can do anything wrong, and then they get yes men around them who continue to promote that instead of somebody going, look, man, this ain't gonna work. You know, your audience isn't gonna like this. You're fired. You know.
And of course, Sigourney Weaver came out what? Sigourney Weaver came out what, today or yesterday? After all the commentary about all the new alien stuff, she goes, "Nope, I'm done with it. There's no way I'm going back to it," because she recognized what they're planning on and what they're trying to bring for the new alien stuff is garbage.
Yeah, it is garbage.
It's absolute garbage. And she's like, nope, I don't want anything to do with that.
It's more Blade Runner than Alien.
The only thing she wanted to work on that was
Blomkamp. That was what got her back into coming back for Alien.
But it's okay. What she's doing with Cameron, with Avatar, because Avatar 2 was fantastic. And the technology and the mecha designs that he did for this The Way of Water was fantastic.
I have yet to see either one of those movies.
You need to. They're good. Just give them a glance.
I don't know. Tony, that's a different story. He insists that the Avatar movies are great films and I need to watch them. I've never found anything about them appealing. I know at some point I'm going to have to bite the bullet and watch them just to say, okay, yes, I've watched it and experienced it. There's just nothing about it that appeals to me, even though I know all the advancements. And I know James Cameron's putting everything he got into doing it, and he did 2 and 3 back to back, and I know the whole lore. There's still nothing about it that's grabbing me.
Well, and that's what's sad is movies like what he's trying to do have been around for ages, and they're classic in their at their core. You know, if you like any of the old pirate movies or you like any of the old westerns, they're
Simple and
base with complex
context.
stories around it.
Okay.
I mean, look, if you want to watch Avatar, you just got to ask yourself two questions. First of all, did you see Dances with Wolves?
Yes.
Did you like Dances with Wolves? Do you like space?
It was okay.
You
I
like
like space.
All right, if you take Dances with Wolves and put it in space, that's Avatar. Just go watch it.
With robots. You gotta understand.
And it,
Robots
with a little bit of Spartacus
Okay, so
rolled in.
Dances with Wolves in the Robotech era.
Yeah, I would say that.
Yeah, but you
Yeah.
got to
Okay, I'll
get the
watch it.
fact that there's it's
Yeah.
very Spartacus, because the main character is a human who they go into these clone bodies, and he
Right.
leads that people in a revolt against. It's straight up Spartacus, man. I don't care, the Roman
You're
revolt
muddying the
of
water.
the
You're muddying the
gladiators.
water. No.
That's what that was with
You're adding too
cowboy
much to
chaps.
it. You're adding too much to it. You're muddying the water. Just Dances with Wolves in space with mechs. And
Which
then
is the first one? Which is the first one?
Yeah.
One?
Yeah.
See, now if I had had that explanation years ago, I would have said, okay, I'll check it out.
I
Well,
mean,
look,
Literally, David just diced it down to me enough to be able to go, okay.
First Contact, okay, Star Trek, right? That's
Wait.
Moby Dick.
Okay, wait.
Straight up Moby Dick.
Wasn't First Contact?
Outland, great Sean Connery space flick, right?
Okay, Outland was great.
I love that. You know what that was? That was High Noon in Space.
Fair.
and
Fair.
connected to aliens, and it is connected to Alien.
Okay, yes.
There are just tons of movies. There's the movie about where the guy has to get the girl to the courthouse on a bus, and he's got to go 16 blocks and all that. You know how many times that story has been used?
Yeah.
You know,
Like
Clint Eastwood had his movie, Bruce Willis had his movie. There was even another one. It's all the same story. They all of them made money. There's certain stories people like to see.
Right.
What we don't want to see is a message film that beats you over the head with the message.
Right.
It should be something that as you're watching it, it gets you thinking and makes you realize, whoa, wait a minute, there's something here to this. And when you walk out of the theater, it sticks with you and you're thinking about it. Those are the best movies. And they're the ones sometimes you don't even realize it till you get home and you sit down and you're like, it starts rolling and creeping in your head and it stays with you for days. You know, that's what I want out of a movie.
That's why I liked A Way of Water, because there's just so much stuff that's like, man, what they're going to bring, the prospects of things that are going to come because of it sets up. This sets up more for what's going to happen with the next few films versus the first one did.
It just reminds me of like if there was a Final Fantasy movie, that kind of a world, brought to life. I would love to see Cameron do Final Fantasy movie, but it's not his thing.
No, you know what I want to see Cameron do after he does all this, if he's still alive. And I know, I mean, this is a joke, but I would love to see his vision working with Neil Blomkamp of Akira.
I
think that they could pull it off with having Neo Tokyo with the way it is, and the ground level with the biker gangs, and then while the military is doing its things, and how they cross between because of them capturing Tetsuro and using him as a test subject, and just everything going out of control.
But the politics of today and I remember what the terminology is. Look at what happened with Ghost in the Shell.
Fantastic to me.
I love the movie, and it was just killed because of political politics.
Well, and it also had to do with the fact that you had people that didn't understand the source material complaining about choices that were made for that film. I'm sorry, but Motoko was a Caucasian feminine sex bot.
Yeah.
So casting Scarlett Johansson was perfect for that role because that's what she was in that movie. That's what she was in the comic. She wasn't Japanese. The inside was Japanese, but her body she used was white. And that's source material from the creator.
It just scares me because there's certain movies that we're never going to see anymore because studios are either too scared or the political environment won't allow it to happen.
I mean, just go make cool characters. And whenever you make
cool
the
new
cool
stories. Don't rehash anything.
Yeah, tell cool stories about cool characters. And whenever you're doing the press junkets for the thing, talk about the cool story with the cool character instead of pointing out how great you are for whatever thing that you're trying to champion over here. It's like we all have eyes and can see what that is. Why you feel the need to pat yourself on the back? Hey, everybody, look, we inserted this thing. Aren't we so great? Aren't we so good? It's like, yeah, okay, you did that, but do they do anything interesting? Is there anything cool about them? Right? Do they have like an awesome superpower? Do they like that Strange Worlds movie, right? That I talked about where it was the kid, okay, he's gay, whatever, that's fine. But it's like, oh, he's this great explorer. And the whole movie, I'm like, this kid doesn't really come off as a very good explorer. He's just kind of stumbling through shit, and he's lucky he doesn't get eaten a couple times because an animal winds up liking him. It's like nothing that he did was really interesting.
Well, and they play up on that because his dad was the quintessential great explorer, and he was like, they had to put the dad in his place to make the son look better, instead of the son learning from the dad. The dad's old-fashioned, he has old-fashioned ideas.
Yeah, he could have taken one of the things that, like, one of the little inventions that his dad had, right, and utilized it in a new and interesting way that maybe his dad didn't see. Like some small little thing like that would have been a tip off of, oh, okay, so this kid, like, maybe he doesn't like, because the whole point of it was he doesn't think like his dad, right? He's trying to come at this whole thing from a different angle and all this other stuff. It's like, that's fine, but like, you need to show me that the way that he's going to do it is interesting and not just I'm going to be hyper pacifist with everything. I mean, that's fine, but you need to just the character didn't do anything really intriguing that whole movie other than just I'm really nice to animals and I love the environment. It's like, okay, I like whatever, I guess, but like could you do something else too on top of it to where you're kind of a cool character that maybe people will care about later? Because otherwise you're just paint drying on a wall, right? And all the other aspects of the character, no one's going to give a crap about. Like the new Voltron, right? The Voltron that came up on Netflix. You had Shiro, right? Shiro later on in the series, you find out that he's gay, had a boyfriend, was training with him, all that stuff. But by the time you got to that, dude, he was such an awesome character.
Awesome character.
That he was well established.
That you're just like, oh, okay, cool. I guess this is a thing. This is an aspect of his life. But everyone wants to hyper focus on that. It's like that's not everything. That's not all of who they are. That's an aspect of them. But there's all this other stuff around them that's important, arguably more important about them, depending on the story that you're trying to tell. So yeah, just tell good stories with good characters, and the rest of it will follow. Jesus.
Yep.
So here's the thing, though. Why can't we get Terry Crews to be Triton?
That'd be hilarious. That'd be hilarious.
I mean, come on.
Especially, you're missing out on an opportunity for a peck pop,
Yeah, well, he's in the water and all the mermaids, the female mermaids are like, oh, they're, whatever.
He causes a tidal wave,
Yeah,
packs Ursula with the
look, but the thing is like, it doesn't, my only problem with this whole thing was the fact that it's like, if you're going to make this change, go the full length of the movie. Don't just do something that's just tokenizing. It's just like you're at that point.
That's exactly the word.
Humanizing what you hope certain people will be able to grasp on. But then you're also, in that same token, alienating a generation who grew up with this, because it's like she was a redhead. So all the redheads I know, like my sister who idolized Ariel, feel alienated. I don't know if she does or not, but she would, at her young age, she would feel alienated that, hey, this was a character that represented me and it's not me anymore. And you've completely just like instead of doing something that everyone can champion, you've created division.
Well, see, here's the thing. Messaging is the new thing. We've had look at Lethal Weapon.
Okay.
You didn't have to have it thrown in your face that Danny Glover was a black guy and or anything like that. He was an equal with the other character, and they didn't lay up on anything. They were just normal people,
Characters,
right?
yes, we're normal.
So that's how you tell a good story, and that's how you show. Like Star Trek, just having Uhura on the bridge did wonders for the black community. And when she wanted to leave because she felt she was being demeaned on the show, Martin Luther King told her, no, there are children watching this show, seeing a young black woman on the bridge of a ship, equal and talking to her captain as an equal. You are an example for people to grow up to. That is how you change things.
And
You don't change things by beating people over the head with it, because in the end, you're going to drive them away and you're going to make them get angry, and then they start throwing up walls.
and then it's going to be more divisive. Exactly. And he was exactly right.
And that's the thing but that even there is the fact that you had a character that was new and fresh and written to be that way because Gene Roddenberry was trying to do something that could possibly change the direction of human history.
Not just Gene Roddenberry, though.
Oh, I know.
Let's give some credit where credit is due. Lucille Ball.
Mm-hmm.
Huge.
That's because she saw something in what he was trying to do.
Right.
And
she constantly.
and Desilu was trying to start competing. She started a lot of shows. It was, both her and Desi, but Desi didn't have the role that Lucy had.
It was her.
Yeah.
And the fact that she said, okay, let's focus on this stuff. Her insight into what would become, legendary product.
But you got to give that to Gene. Don't take that away from Gene. That was his story, his idea.
Right, but
he did, and then he had the smarts enough to hire women writers and men writers, and he hired some of the classic science fiction writers to do some great stories. But
and it's these stories that defined us in our next generation. I mean, defined you guys and defined us, and it brought great storytelling because we had, continuations of those stories with Next Generation and so on. And then same all that stuff also too with you think about how that influenced other media. There are people that will only pigeonhole something for a certain generation or certain demographic, and they don't think outside the box. But we had great writers that were doing that, and now we have people that just want to make fan fiction and completely force something that doesn't feel genuine. So it takes you, the audience, out of the material because it's uncanny valley. It's just like when you look at CGI, it's uncanny because it doesn't look human enough. So when you look at a story, it breaks your immersion of what you're watching. Now and then again, I did bring up The Mermaid. It's like it's not a movie I'm gonna go watch. I mean, if I want to watch the movie, I'm gonna go watch the original with my niece or my wife. I don't have any plans to go watch the live action movies. They don't interest me. I want to see more cartoon movies, or I want to see new movies that they do.
Let's do a contrast here. Two things I want to bring up. First of all, did y'all watch the Titans, the last episode?
I have not been able to. I'm 3 weeks behind.
So we're beginning to see Gunn's influence in the multiverse part of DC, because there is a multiverse segment that introduces characters from television. It's almost kind of following what CW was doing when they were doing the Arrowverse, because there's elements of that in there. I was so pleased with and it kills me that it's ending. This is the last season, and you get to an episode like we just had. I was like, man, it's breaking my heart because I think
Yeah,
right now
tearjerker.
they're really getting good with it. And then the other thing is in what we're talking about, Mario Brothers. Mario Brothers had the potential to be ruined or go horribly
Oh
wrong,
yeah,
and it
with
didn't.
Illumination from what they were trying
It
to do.
is beautifully done. I was in it the entire movie. I had a blast with it. Very seldom do I find something that I can't complain about, and I couldn't complain about that. And I had the same feeling when I left that theater as I had when I watched Speed Racer for the first time, when I realized how much they nailed that old cartoon show in that movie. This nailed Mario. Every experience, all the sounds, all the little Easter eggs, all the moments were there from your childhood on up. If you ever played the Mario Brothers games, or and even that Donkey Kong and the Dream World, and what was the the plumber one where they were just trying to clean out the sewers and had to fight the crabs and everything
Yeah,
else.
just Mario Brothers.
Um, it was fantastic. I sit there and I turned to my grandkids and said, I want to see it again. I'm ready to sit through this movie again right now. That's how much fun
Fun it was.
that
Yeah.
movie was. And it shows you that when you've got somebody who understands the property, understands the heart, relies on the ability of their actors to capture that instead of trying to force them into a pigeonhole, something will work. And they're gonna make $1 billion off of it. So, people need to learn.
Yeah, this is that thing. He's like, the more true you are to the source material, and you think about who your audience is, not what the potential of audience growth that you're going to get from it, because people forget that, like, with the Mario Brothers movie, we all played the games, and we showed our kids these games, so they have this passion, this like love for it beyond what normal people would have for certain other media. And they stuck true to the source material and put so much in there. There was so much delicate care and love that was put in that film for us, for the fan. And that's why it's going to make $1 billion or more. It's there for us. It's just like the Sonic movie, both of them are
Yep.
fantastic, and they
And look
listen.
how Sonic could have went horribly wrong and almost did.
Right.
That was a film that was ready to come out, and the audience was voiced their opinion, and they went back and refilmed and reshot it, and what came out was far superior to what was going to originally be on at theaters.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Wait, and then this goes back to the whole thing of like the video that hopefully I'll be able to get up sometime within the next week or so of us talking about the Turtles trailer, is that it's so far from what we know as fans.
Yeah.
And that's about the same as like the sequel trilogy. The sequel trilogy was so far. It was like it had the window dressings of what we loved, but then it was just this complete. Once we moved beyond the curtains, we saw the man behind it who was pulling the strings, and it was awful. And Turtles looks garbage. It doesn't. My son doesn't even like
Well,
look
for
look at
me,
it.
it's just it's stylized and it's for another generation. It's not going to be something I see if I catch it on cable, I'll watch it. It's not my Turtles, but half the stuff that's come out hasn't been the Turtles. I'm Mirage, I'm all about the old stuff,
Well, but
you
see,
know.
but the same argument can be said. Who are you? Who are you trying to reach out to for that movie? Not the fans that grew up with the original cartoon or the comic or the
This is
original
for a new
movie.
group. This
Right.
is
And how much percentage of that, the parents that love the stuff that we love, that taught their kids what was the Turtles, and they see this? I mean, it's almost like they're pandering to those jocks that didn't watch because all cartoons are for kids. Now they're all nerds about it. Like, man, this reminds me of my childhood, even though they don't have any connection to it whatsoever. So their kids don't have any connection to whatsoever. So it's flashy. So that's a small percentage versus the mass world of
they're
people.
hoping to get the title, the name to draw people in, but they're not trying to give you the turtles. But it's really aimed at little kids. I mean, look at like I always hated Teen Titans Go, but I got to admit, man, it's kind of funny sometimes. It shows they've got their moments, but it's not what I wanted. I loved the old Teen Titans show that was serious.
Yeah,
Right.
it had the
You know?
comedic moments, but it was
Yeah.
still goofy a little bit. But yeah, I mean, which this goes into our topic tonight, the main meat of this episode, which is the Last Ronin. So Kevin Eastman, Peter Laird, and IDW, right? Is Productions, I believe.
Yes.
Yeah, came together to give us a final rollout of the Turtles that seems like this actually connects to the original Mirage comic, of a character that is the Last Ronin going in to get his revenge on the descendant of
Shredder.
Yeah.
So,
And and it's also an ending of an era because like all things, at some point the hero has to die to give way for the new generation, and that's
next
what
generation.
they're doing is they're introducing the kids and a newer gives them a way of telling new stories.
Mm-hmm.
And I really did enjoy how that story went. It reminded me of Frank Miller's Ronin, which I wonder if that had any influence
On the name.
on the name.
Well, overall,
Overall, yeah. And it also going back when looking at some of the scenes, that's what me and Mark were trying to capture when we did the threat. There are elements in there that they have. Our book came out first, but I know they didn't even hear of the threat. But it tells you, okay, I understood where they were coming from. I understood what they were trying to portray. And it always makes me feel good about what me and Mark tried to do. We were actually
you know,
kind of ahead of our time because a
it's
lot of
funny,
elements from our book are ending up in other books and other stories.
right? And it's funny you should mention that because when I read it, there was a lot of familiar story plot and story ideas to it. And I was thinking, okay, it's a good story, but it didn't resonate as much with me as it is you guys. And I was thinking, you, Vince, have written better stories. I mean, it was still a great story, and I actually after a certain point, I was able to predict what was going to happen because it fell into a familiar formula, and I could see where it was going. I could see what they were going to do with it, and you know, it was just a matter of okay, when is this going to happen?
Mm-hmm.
And I was thinking the whole time, I know for a fact that both you and your father have written or come up with ideas that were stronger all the way through. And
Well, this was his.
it's nothing against the story itself and nothing against anything of it. It just, after a certain point, it just, for me, and I hate to use the word pedestrian, but it just, after a certain point, it just got to me like, okay, this is going to happen. When is it going to happen? How is it going to happen?
It reminded me of the old samurai stories
Right.
of
That's fair.
the on a suicide mission to avenge his master. He's now a Ronin, and when you realize it's Mikey and he's haunted by the ghosts of his brothers, and when he goes to commit seppuku, that was really in deep, and it had a throwback feel to all the old Asian stuff in
Right.
anime and stories and manga and you name it.
Which is entirely fair because you and I are both old enough to remember when those stories were popular, when those ideas back in the 70s and early 80s were popular to a degree. Back then there was a Wild West. They were willing to say, okay, there are characters who believe in this, and there are characters who believe so much that they have dishonored this, or they want the honor way out, where they're killed by the enemy or whatever. And that, yes, that very much does cover that. And you're exactly right. And that's maybe that's part of what I recognized.
Mhm.
But for the younger audience, I could see where it was a fresh take on it. But I don't know. I mean, I enjoyed reading the story, but it didn't engross me as much as it did you, Vinny.
Mhm.
I mean, it left me wanting.
Well, there's a lot there to want, because when you get those moments of the glimpses of what led up to the point of why Mikey's coming back to New York to do what he's doing, you
Right.
just get glimpses of it. It's like you had almost like 100-run issue of TMNT crunched down into 4 issues.
That's fair.
And that hunger, it makes you hungry for more. That's great storytelling.
It is.
Because you're like, wow, man, I want to go find out what happened here.
Right.
And kind of Lucas did the same thing with Star Wars. He created a history for you, but we didn't get to see everything that happened.
Mm-hmm.
They were familiar ideas. We all know what an enemy is. We all know what fascism and empires and all that stuff, and what rebels and soldiers in their last minute, the whole 300, all that. They were all classic stories. And he put it together in such a unique way that it felt fresh and new.
Right.
And that's kind of what I felt with Ronin, but it also felt like an ending to an era for him. Because I was reading the books when I remember a friend of mine had it, and we had to order them from New York. Remember how when we had to order from
Yeah,
you
through the
got a hold
catalog
of
and
the
online.
catalog thing,
Before online.
and we didn't have computers back then to go
Right. It was all mail order.
Mail order. And he goes, man, read this. And I read that book, and I said, man, this is fantastic. Where do I get it? And he goes, you got to order it. There's a page in the back, right down in the actual comic. You could write down the information and order it from them. And that's what I did. And I got them in the mail for a long time. For the first at least 10 issues, I had to wait for them to come in the mail.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
The
original what's the word, David? Like you're doing with the games? And then funding or
Kickstarter.
Kickstarter, thank you.
Oh,
Well, I mean,
I was like, what games are you talking about? Where are we at?
Direct from distributor kind of thing.
Yeah, Kickstarter is what I was thinking. But yeah, that's what it was, their own, creating their own viral campaign, creating their own, hey, we're going to get the orders, we can produce these many books, and getting it out there. That's the way it originally was with
and they did short runs so that they could, and then they'd reprint 1 and reprint 2, and eventually you'd get like a different cover so it made your reprint different, and worth something. And then the fact that they were larger than a normal comic,
Yeah. Exactly.
So I know that maybe the fact that this was the first book that has been in a long time that both of them worked on. It resonated, I know, with us because we read the original comic and stuff, but
well, I mean, and it was a perfect send off, right? It did multiple different art styles. It did the art style going all the way back to the original comics, right?
Right.
All your characters had their moments. It wasn't like anybody went down in a crappy way. It was everything. Everything that you would hope for in there. it was just really well constructed, right? It was really well constructed. It was clearly very well thought out. Honestly, you could stop reading it right at the moment that you get to the end and Mikey's with his brothers, right? And you could stop reading right there and be done, right? It would be perfect. And I mean, yeah, they're going and they're doing the continuation and the lost years and the new generation and all that's great. But I mean, if you just contain it to what happened with Mikey and all of that, it's great. I mean, seeing Splinter just mow his way through Foot Clan was awesome, right? Seeing Leo and
Casey.
Casey banding together to fight off like all the Mausers, right? I mean, just every single issue just had a moment, right? Just had it was perfect. It had something to bring you in, to bring you back. To man, I really wonder what happened to Donnie and Splinter, right? Man, I really want to know what happened with this. It was great. It was fantastic.
Yeah, I'm glad I waited till after it was a trade, after it was collected, because that'd have driven me nuts.
Yeah.
Waiting for the next issue, because it felt like something I would, damn it, I want to finish this. And
I will say this: the Mouser fight on the rooftop there, that was one of the few scenes throughout the whole thing that really had me, where he and Casey were going at it with all of that. And what happened at the end there, because I don't want to do spoilers, that I gotta admit, that was a great twist. That was, I mean, it was after that point that I started feeling familiar territory. But at that point, I was like, wow, okay, that's powerful.
What I love too, like when they went back to the whole older style from the original comic, it was in black and white,
Right.
And it showed what Mikey did after everything went down, and
yeah, there was a lot of payoffs to old stories.
There was a lot of resolution.
Because even like when Raphael goes, that was the one thing. It's like, I know Dad with Star Trek, Kirk deserved that ending where he went in a blaze of glory taking down enemies, so we got that with Raph. We got like almost from a perspective of what each character represented for the team, they got the death that they deserved, and not like it being like, okay, this is taking me out of it. I don't believe this would have happened.
I can't believe that you brought that up. The fact that I got to thank J.J. Abrams for giving a Kirk, his dad, the ending that Kirk deserved.
Yeah.
Getting everybody off the ship and then taking the ship into a battle, knowing he isn't going to come back, instead of dying on a friggin' bridge somewhere.
Yeah, he fell
killed by Malcolm McDowell.
Anyway, but
even a broken clock is right twice a day.
Oh.
But like, it was good to see. It was really cool because reading the book, it was like you came back to familiar friends and like picking up where they were. When you get to see April and then
Grandma April.
Yeah, Grandma. Well,
right.
Mama April.
Mama April. Yeah.
And then
that was a fun twist for me. I will admit that was a fun twist. Kind of predictable, but fun to see. Fun to see the next, where it's going to go.
Well, and it was hard watching each of them go. I know that I felt emotional about it because it's like these characters I grew up with. And
there was a couple of times I had to put it down.
It hit me hard. I mean, besides, G.I. Joe with Snake Eyes, his origin, not the garbage from the cartoon, even though I love the cartoon.
No, the comic book origin was that one episode.
Same thing with when Prime died,
Yeah.
There's moments of like certain characters, even Godzilla, that hit me hard because it's like these characters I grew up with and they're like almost family members to me because they've been so much of a part of my life.
Well, I remember when Prime, I didn't know they were going to kill Prime, and I was like, you were sitting next to me, and you just me and my son watching something we enjoy, and then boom, he dies, and you look up to me with the tears in your eyes, and you're just, is he dead? And I go, I think he's dead. And man, I start bawling, and you're bawling, and all of a sudden I hear all these other adults in the theater crying. That you were watching a cartoon, and there was enough emotion in that cartoon to draw that out of you.
Mhm.
Yeah,
You know,
good writing.
um, but when Duke died in GI Joe, I was like, that sucks. I didn't tear up. I was like, and he didn't die, because in the end they were like, oh, we can't make the same mistake we did with Transformers. He was in a coma, you
But he
know.
did. But that's the thing, though. That whole scene, he's dead, and
Yeah,
they're crying, and they had to redub the lines to say, "Oh, he's in a coma."
yeah.
And you have Hawk tearing up because he's dead, and they go, "Oh yeah, Duke's fine, yay!" I'm like, "Come on, guys."
And then they paid that off later in Resolute
Yeah,
when Duke's coming out of the coma, and all of that was a dream for of
Bobby
Duke.
Ewing style.
well, remember they killed Duke in the Retaliation movie.
I don't know. I mean,
So, and that
don't
was
even bring that up. I was so mad. I was like, did they just kill Duke?
yeah.
F this movie.
He's like Kenny.
But and that's the thing, is like getting Michelangelo to have this like the final thing. Him being the youngest, him going through all this, losing everything.
And they hinted at him because, trying to remember, because it's been a while, there was a series where each one of them went against the greatest hunter, or greatest combatant, and they were going to die, and whoever, they had to go against him, and if they failed, they died. But if one of them beat him, they would live. And Mikey was the one who won. And when you're reading it, you're like, wow, Mike's the guy who beat him in the end. And you saw that tenacity in him at that point, that he wasn't the fun loving, joking Mikey he used to be. He had grown up, and he was very much the equal to his brothers.
Right.
And then to pay that off later on, where he's the only one who made it.
Yeah.
Um, you could tell they were going through, and they were going back and just racking their brains about other elements of this long history of these comics.
Well, how old he was by the time that happened, and the fact that he
Yeah.
mutating, and I think that had he not gotten as much damage as he did, he probably would have survived and continued to live on.
Unless he was Padme and he just didn't want to live anymore.
Yeah, I lost a
Yeah.
little
He
bit.
died of a broken heart.
Yeah, he was ready to go.
Yeah.
I will say that. He knew what was coming, and he was
I
accepted
agree.
it, and he was ready for
I think
it.
he was tired and ready to go. He wanted
Yeah.
that rest.
Now, that to me was a great homage to the old samurai movies, the old samurai stories, where he's like, okay, if I can get through this and I can get this done, I'll be okay.
I can lay my sword down and rest.
I'm good. Just get me through this. Boom. And to me, that was, it wasn't necessarily original story writing, but it was, a tribute to it. It went all the way back to the beginnings of what those characters were supposed to be. They're supposed to be tributes to this. They're supposed to be, modern day representations of such. And I think as far as that goes, where he was, okay, I'm done, let's get this done. That to me was like, the Last Samurai or the Seven Samurai type of thing.
Or 13 Assassins, all those great.
Yeah.
Well, that was what was
stories.
cool, was when they went onto the island to take down basically the grid for the building so that Mikey can get up there.
Yeah.
And Baxter Stockman's like personality in there. That was it was kind of cool. It reminded me of Terminator a little bit. That was it felt like there was like different instances in these moments.
Well, there was like
homaging.
There was like Blade Runner elements. There were, man, it was just even Lawnmower Man. There was kind of like a feel of the second Lawnmower Man to it. And remember the future city and everything.
Yeah.
That's the thing is like where like Mando failed us is it gave us that hint of something epic,
Something
like
greater.
a lone wolf and cub. I would have loved to see Mando and Grogu going off and having a fight, like Lone Wolf and Cub did. You know, he's not going to be a Jedi, so that doesn't mean he's going to become a dark Jedi. It just means he's going to learn to be an assassin and a bounty hunter like Mando. Just think of the stories that we could have gotten with that, and
Well, we
instead,
don't know. I know with everything going on, but
I know it just
but I mean, if they,
really, I want to tell you, it really felt like an ending, sitting there on an old bench watching the boy play.
yeah, but remember, he was using this episode. I mean, we weren't even going to get into this yet. We're
Well,
going.
look, Kennedy wanted to kill him off
I
anyway
know,
because
but
she decided to do a jump in time for Skeleton Crew, and she
yes,
was like, "Well, we're going to have," and they filmed part of it without telling Pascal that's what this was going to be his death scene. And then he got into a fight with her, and she fired him off the show. And they hired somebody come in and wear the outfit to pretend to be him. And then she wanted to rehire him to do the voiceover, and he realized you were going to kill my character. Yeah, I was like, yeah. And then her sorry ass excuse me, you can edit that
well,
out if you want.
the
Well, I
the
think
one
it's a
thing,
good place for us to leave him. He's completed his journey. You know what? Get out of here.
well, we know that's not what Favreau wants, but the one thing I did take from the ending from that, and we need to get back to the turtles because I need David to start kind of giving his things on it, is the fact that at the end of the episode, the one thing that we learned is that Grogu realized that he could do more with the Force. And then when they're sitting on their homestead, he's doing the levitation of the frog in the puddle in there, and it drops. So
Yeah.
it's like him having the curiosity and the belief now that he can do stuff with the Force versus what we were getting earlier where he felt limited with it. He couldn't see it. And it was like it's almost like a kind of homage to Luke Skywalker. He didn't believe he could lift the X-wing until Yoda just
That
did.
is why you fail.
So hopefully, we're going to see him start to train, and he may go and say, "Hey, I want to go train with Luke for a period of time." This could be the inspiration of things that we need him to do, so he becomes the character he needs to. But we don't know how it's going to go because we
I'm
know
not, I'm
all the
not
stuff.
counting on anything anymore.
I know that.
Maybe out that way I won't be disappointed.
We can speculate, but the problem is that we know until Kathleen Kennedy's gone, nothing's going to change. And
Kaiju Kennedy, let's just do it like it's proper, please.
Kaiju Kennedy.
She's a monster.
Someone needs to. Someone in our audience.
That's an insult to kaijus.
No.
Sorry.
Hold on. Someone who's a who's
Visual artist.
artist that wants to do this for us. I want you to draw King Caesar with Kathleen Kennedy's head. And there we go. It's Kaiju Kennedy. And then
I tried and I failed.
copyright Dad Level Podcast crew. All right.
That ought to be your first T-shirt that you create.
I would
Yes.
love that. I would love for that to be
That would
one
be
of
awesome.
our shirts.
But
Stomping
David,
on dreams
Have
Yes,
Kaiju
since
Kennedy with a
1965.
DLC
Find out when she was
shirt.
born.
No, just have Kaiju Kennedy with a DLC shirt.
destroying, ripping out fanboys' hearts since 1970.
I mean, Josh really liked my idea, just as a quick sidebar, of her breathing fire on all the action figures that are related to Disney.
Mando melting.
Mando and Indy and all the Star Wars figures.
Grogu going.
Yeah.
He's trying to hold him
And
back.
he's got a
He's
force
like
level blocking the
melting.
fire.
But David, as far as the last Ronin, man, let's wrap this up with you as far as your thoughts on it.
I thought I gave my thoughts on it.
Oh, a little bit more. I mean, I
Come
know.
on, man. You're being me.
I mean, I don't know what more I can. I mean, like I said, man, it was a perfect way to end that series.
Sure.
I mean, that's it, right? It was, again, everybody got their moment to shine. It paid off on so much. The fact that they blended in the old art styles with the new to tell this whole thing. I mean, it. Yeah, you can go. I like what we're doing, right? You could go into all the cool extra aspects of it, of the almost cyberpunk nature to it that they started going into, right? It's like, yeah, you can talk about that, but at the end of the day, I mean, all that's cool, but it's just it was a fantastic way to end the story, and the fact that it was done by, the original creators coming together to do this kind of one last hurrah into the sunset of it is great.
There's a
And
late, you could tell it's a labor of love.
Yeah.
yeah,
Right.
clearly they've been thinking about this, right? They've had this in their mind, and they wanted to do it right, and I'm glad that they did. It was a great send off for four great characters, and it's just encouraging me more than I need to finish picking up all the rest of these trades because I've
Yeah,
only
I
got
do too. I only have one. I need to get the second one. At least that the second one's come down. It's not like $100, 100 plus anymore.
yeah,
But
they're a little bit cheaper these days, but yeah, I need because I mean this whole IDW run, from everything that I've, all the reviews, the parts of it that I've read, right? It's a really good run of Turtles. It is an extremely good run of Turtles, and the fact that I know that this is where it ends is great. It's fantastic.
well, and then we got the Lost Years coming up, hopefully in the collected volume. I think by June or so. So looking forward to picking that up and reading it just to see where they go with the new generation of turtles. It would be kind of cool to see a comic where the afterlife of the turtles, you know.
All right, no, we're not Dragon Ball Z in this thing.
No, I'm not talking
Let them
about
go.
I'm talking about
They're in wherever Valhalla
like
Turtles
Lost.
go
There you
to.
go. It could be like Lost. They could be sitting there stuck on an island remembering the old times.
Not
No,
realizing that
I
they're all
want
gone.
them to run into Snake Lady. That's what I want. Now you've said it. Now I want it. I want them to run into the Snake Lady, right? They go down and then they realize that they're actually inside and about to be digested by a snake. And then I want them to get trained by King Kai, but I don't want them to learn
Yes.
Kaioken because no one else learned. Even though everyone trained with King Kai, only Goku learned Kaioken, which makes no effing
No
sense.
sense, yes.
Toriyama. So yeah, I want the turtles to go and train with King Kai now. I absolutely need that in my life.
That is completely invisible. How did you do that? No, I'm joking.
My hand clapper. But it's freaking green. It's exactly the same color. That's funny.
All right. So anything last words, guys, before we close this out? Okay.
Stay tuned to the next episode because there's so much more we missed tonight.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff to cover, but stay tuned for episode 75. Dai's going to be back with us. We're going to be discussing the comic Radiant Black. I read the first volume. It's really good. That's what we're going to be talking about. So stay tuned. We will catch you later. Have a great one, everyone.